Hello. How's everybody? Welcome to Frankenstein Tea. 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. I think it's Wednesday afternoon, October 21st, 2020. How's everybody doing out there? Everybody hanging in there? Everybody all right? Oh, I have a nice cup of coffee I just made. I'm going to have a sip. Sort of a drizzly, warm day on Block Island. Very, very warm, but drizzly. And it's warm, but we're always chilly in the building. It's a little chilly in here, but okay. I hope you're doing okay. We've been coming to terms with the fact that our programming, we're going to work to get this building open next month, November. This building will be open at the beginning of November. And, but I don't think we'll do programming. It seems like the data and the country is in bad shape about COVID. And so we'll continue with virtual programming. So, I will be running this program for over a year. We're looking at 6 months of virtual program is what we're talking about. Here's the reality, right? I think if we talk about it and deal with it, maybe it won't be so depressing, but we're looking at November, December, January, February, March, April, I think, of, limited indoor library service and online programming, hybrid library, the hybrid library. I think I used that language early on and still using it, hybrid library. It's okay. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. So that would mean if we do that, I will have run a short story program almost every day, almost live every day for over a year. Read a story for a whole year. I'm thinking, gosh, I might have to read Frankenstein at the end, right? Maybe we'll get to Frankenstein this winter. I'm feeling like it's a day for Frankenstein today. That's why I'm thinking about it. Maybe I should read Frankenstein right now for Halloween. You can vote on that if you're out there. We'll see. Today, I'm going to read from another book sale score. This is, when I show you the spine, it's to show you that it's not in our collection. No library tags on this. This is another book sale score. Found it this morning. And what an interesting book. The best American non-required reading, 2018. Very interesting little book. I think this is students. This is what it says. Over the past year, 15 Bay Area high school students have gathered each week in the basement of an independent publishing house to pore over online and print literary journals, magazines, books, plays, and graphic novels. They read things they couldn't shake and engaged in deep conversations about how good writing brings people together, no matter what else is happening around the world. That's us. That's us. Good writing brings people together, no matter what else is happening around the world. That's us. I couldn't have said it better. Here's to you. So I was quickly enamored with this book, and I'm going to read from it today. It was edited by Sheila Heti, Heti, Sheila Heti. It's a Mariner original, Houghton Mifflin hardcore, Boston, New York, 2018. Oh, I got to turn on a light. I can't see. Let me go do that. Hold on. Let me turn on a light. Okay, much better. So from this book, I'm going to read, "The universe would be so cruel. by Suvankam Tamavangska. That's who it's by. Did I do okay? Suvankam Thamasvanska. The Universe Would Be So Cruel, originally published in Noon, which I think is a magazine. Here we go. Frankenstein Tea for today. This short story starts. Mr. Vong stretched his neck to look over the tops of the heads of the wedding guests, trying to take in a good view of the bride and groom. When he spotted them, he made a bold prediction. Ah, lovely. Too bad it isn't going to last. Mr. Vong had been invited not because he was a relative or because he was well acquainted with the parents. He was the one the young couple turned to, being the only printer who offered Lao lettering on wedding invitations. He was highly sought after for his Lao fonts and his eloquence with the language, his knowledge of how little things can shape and affect outcomes. Sure, his clients could download fonts and print them out at Kinko's, but that kind of lazy effort could signify a lazy marriage, one where at the first sign of trouble, divorce would be the answer. And anyway, most of his clients didn't know how to write in Lao, having been born here. They needed him to impress their parents. Mr. Vong took great care, made his own paper, every fiber dried and flattened in his shop, taking several months. He understood more than anyone the superstitions Lao people had about getting names and dates exact throughout the entire process. How a spelling error during the proofing process could foretell an error in marriage, could change the fate of the couple. He regarded himself as the gatekeeper of their good fortune. Mr. Vong printed their wedding invitations and charged a very small price in hopes that word would get around about his good printing shop. He didn't make much money on his services. Most of his clients were the ones the bigger businesses didn't want to deal with. Men and women working for themselves who didn't buy in bulk, who didn't have much time to be on the internet, who didn't speak English, but somehow, through some signals of hands and sounds, something could be understood about what they wanted. He took the time to talk to each person and spent many hours helping them pick out material and paint. These clients he liked best. They reminded him of himself. Farmers coming into his shop with dirty fingernails because they worked out in the field all day, or butchers who didn't have time to change out of clothes stained with blood from a fresh kill. All of them doing the grunt work of the world. The clients he didn't like were the salesmen dressed in fine business suits, the ones who always asked for things to be cheaper so they could get a larger cut of the profit. He chased these men away. He spotted them the way you spot danger. The crease of their pressed suits, the leather briefcase, slicked back hair, perfect English. They called him Buddy, corrected his spelling. It all made him yell, "Fuck you." Sometimes, when he was in a good mood and had time to spare and felt like humoring them, he would allow them to be in his shop for 15 minutes, allow them to talk on and on, to show him their graphs. But he'd eventually get back to yelling the same thing he'd yell at the others like them who had come before. The world treated men like this well. They had offices and towers and secretaries, but in this shop, one he owned and operated alone, he was boss. And he wasn't going to give them the same treatment others had given them. Of course, this didn't make much for him in terms of dollars, but that wasn't the point. The point was to be free, to own a thing you had all to yourself, and to be able to say, "Fuck you, all of you. Fuck you into hell." Whatever that really meant, Mr. Vong didn't know, but it was fun to say. something that had been said to him at one point. Fun indeed to see these men lose their smooth talk and make their quick, fumbling exits. Above all, it was the wedding invitations. They were what gave him the most joy in his work. This wedding couple had anticipated a very high price for Mr. Vong's care and expertise, but that was not at all. They were so happy. They instantly invited him to their wedding, both of them smiling with their even, bright teeth. With teeth that white, that well cared for, there was no reason they could not have offered to pay more than he had asked. But instead, they accepted the price like those salesmen, eager for the bargain. No marriage would last where two people didn't recognize what would be the right thing to do. Now, at this point in the night, after the guests had been served papaya salad, spring rolls, minced chicken with fresh herbs and spices, sticky rice, and sweets wrapped in banana leaves, when the bride and groom were having their first dance as husband and wife, that Mr. Vong made his bold prediction. Why are you saying this? Keep your voice down, Mrs. Vong, his devoted and loyal wife of 20 years, urged, slapping him on his arm and looking around at the people seated at their table, wondering if they had heard. It did not seem so, as everyone else seemed to be busying themselves with their food or in their conversations with each other. Just you mark my words, less than a year. That's my prediction, less than a year. He returned to his meal, gathering up the minced chicken with a flattened ball of sticky rice. Mr. and Mrs. Vong's daughter listened. She was amused and curious about the accuracy of his prediction. Her father tended to be right about these things. Dad, you know for sure? I know these things, he said. True enough. In less than a year, the bride and groom were divorced. Later that year, Mr. Vong made another one of his predictions. This time, he made it the minute he opened the wedding invitation. He said, not even going to happen. The wedding invitation had been printed by Mr. Vong. The wedding invitation had not been printed by Mr. Vong. One could presume that the prediction was the result of some petty competition or his hurt pride. It was printed at a fancy shop downtown on a street called Richmond, whose only specialty was printing invitations. There was no Lao lettering to be found anywhere on the invitation. It was fancy and had raised print. The little silver sparkled bumps could be felt, running a hand across the lettering, forming the names, addresses, dates. And yes, Mr. Vong's prediction came true. The groom married someone else named Sue. Phone calls were made, canceled, called off. Dad, seriously, how did you know? Look, I know these things. You just can't have a Lao wedding without Lao letters on the invitation. And you have to have your real name in there. Yeah, it's a long name, but that's your name. Why would you want to be Sue if it's really Savignagthagad? Because, the real Sue will end up marrying the guy if it's there in the invitation. Now, when it was time for Mr. Vong's daughter to get married, he spared no expense. He ordered sparkle paint from Laos, made out of the crushed wings of a rare local insect. The gold specks were real and not artificial, real shine and shimmer for a real marriage. He printed the invitations and put each one out to dry on a metal rack. 4 on each rack, a total of 400 invitations, an even number. He did everything he could possibly do to ensure that his daughter's wedding invitations were perfect and ready to be sent out into the scrutiny of the universe. But on the day of the wedding, the groom was not there. He was on the coast of France, vacationing with family. "Look, my family has been planning this for a long time," the boy said. "I just couldn't get out of it. So, yeah, sorry, babes," the boy said. If the boy's parents even knew about the wedding, Mr. Vong didn't know. They had never met. At the time, Mr. Vong thought nothing of it, didn't question, wasn't curious. And now, thinking of it, there was always some excuse, and it was always something coming out of that boy's small mouth. It was as if Mr. Vong's plans were of no value or of lesser value, or not even up for consideration. It didn't occur to him to ask questions. He believed what he was told. There had been a proposal, and that's all he needed to know about that. Mr. Vong's daughter threw the phone onto the floor, and it stayed complete and solid in its protective case, invented for such situations. Then she ran. She ran and opened the first door she saw, but it turned out to be a closet. She folded herself in there and cried. He let her cry and shooed away everyone who tried to comfort her. A woman ought to cry, he thought. She ought to be allowed to bawl it all out. And after, she said, "Dad, Dad, are you there?" "Yes, I am right here," he said. "It's all your fault, isn't it? The invitations. Something must have gone wrong." Mr. Vong thought of an answer, one he could use to explain, to reason out what had happened to the day, how the wedding had come to this. I found one invitation behind the door." He talked to his daughter as if he were a small schoolboy who had stolen an eraser to win the affections of his friend and had now been summoned by the headmaster to explain. "I must have missed it. The one. All invitations must go out. It was just one. I didn't know the universe would be so cruel. I am terribly sorry. I am trained to know, to predict, and to ensure these things." It was not true at all, of course. He had accounted for everything. But this was no time for his own pride. No amount of "fuck you to hells" could make a difference to that boy. How could you tell her that that boy wasn't kind or good? That she wasn't loved by that boy? That sometimes what felt like love only felt like love and wasn't real? And that even if it had been real, sometimes love can stop spinning like a top you set in motion. You couldn't do anything about that. But you could say, "Yes, yes," an invitation behind the door. That was it. Short story today called "The Universe Would Be So Cruel." Nifty little book here from the book sale. The best American non-required reading, 2018. I'm going to look for the current edition of this book. I'm going to see if this is still going on. Bay Area students. My kid goes to school with a lot of Bay Area students. I'm going to look for people that know him. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for coming. Hi, Dad. Hi, listeners. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the warmth. Enjoy your heat not being on yet. I'll see you again tomorrow at 3:00 for another edition of Frankenstein Tea. Stay well, everybody. Mask up. I got this mask last winter and I thought it was too small, but I'm liking it today. Right? It's a good one. All right. Be well. What are they saying? 3 W's. What is it? Wash. Oh, wear it. Wash. And what's the keep your distance? I don't know. I'll have to learn the 3 W's, I guess, before I talk about them. All right. Peace out. Be good. Talk to you later. Bye, Dad.